Well, thank you guys. That was good. I appreciate Elise stepping up and leading us, and family, and Suzanne. You probably wouldn't mind being part of that family. It's such a nice family. There we go. Well, some of you I have not met. So I am Bernd, Strom, and by every other day of the week, I'm a school teacher. I teach at Conway Middle School, 6th and 7th grade, English and social studies. And then I also coach a little bit of soccer at Mount Vernon High School, which is a kind of a fun little hobby, more or less. One of the things I do at Conway is I have vocabulary words. And I was thinking about the Beatitudes, which we were walking through, as a bit of a vocabulary that is helpful for our journey of faith. Like, what words do we need to know as we make our way through the Christian life? And for those who, perhaps you're like, I'm not really into the whole Christian life thing, I just found myself here for the first time, and I'm kind of just checking it out. These would just be words that kind of give you an idea of what we believe to be true about God, what we believe to be true about ourselves, and what it looks like to make our way from birth to death. So one of the words is mercy. So I would love for you to turn to somebody next to you, because this is what I do in my 6th grade class. We have little table groups, and we turn and we talk to each other, because it's better to be collaborative in this. If we're just isolated and alone, it can be a little frightening. So you can turn to the person you drove here with, or you can be really, really adventurous and turn to somebody you didn't drive here with and share what you believe the word mercy is. And I'm going to invite you to find an antonym for that word. Now, antonym, you can always remember, is anti. Antonym, anti, it's the opposite. Synonym is same, starts with an S, right? So antonym, opposite, find that definition for what mercy is, and then go ahead and find an antonym for that word, the opposite of what you believe mercy to be. And I'll give you about 8 minutes to talk about that. No, I'm just kidding. 8 minutes. You're thinking to yourself, my goodness, Bernd, I don't think I can. I'll give you 30 seconds each. How about that? You can do that. Ready? And I actually use my clock or my little stopwatch all the time with my students, so I'm going to do it with you. Ready? 30 seconds. Get set. Mercy. Go. All right, it's starting to get quiet, which is unusual, especially for my 6th grade class. It just gets louder and louder. But usually they're not talking about what they should be, so that's why I rein it in. Would anybody like to just shout out a couple of things on what you believe about mercy? Love? Forgiveness, not what we deserve, not getting what we deserve. All right, let's go antonym, opposite. What do you know? Unforgiveness. Oh, Mike, genius. Punishment. Anger. Yeah. Boy, I wish you guys were in my class. This is so much more fun. And you're on topic. So good. All right. So, I'm mindful that we've gone through a hard week. I was coaching at Mount Vernon High School on Tuesday night. We played a game, and we had a moment of silence before the match began. And it was really long. It felt like it went on and on, that silence. And I was mindful of that there is a silence that will go on and on for those families who lost ones. That is a long silence, and it was hard. On Thursday night, we played away, and the opposing team brought a flower to each of our girls that played. And it was a nice gesture, just that we had experienced loss in our community. So as I mentioned before, I listen to NPR a fair bit, and on Friday mornings they have StoryCorps, which is when two people get together and they'll talk in an interview style, and they'll share a story that they would like to just remember. And so this one was given by a woman by the name of Terry Roberts, and about 10 years ago, and I'll just read basically the interview to you. The Amish shooting and the aftermath. 10 years ago, a gunman barricaded himself inside a one-room Amish schoolhouse near Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Then he opened fire. Charlie Roberts, killed 5 children and injured 5 others before killing himself. And this is Terry speaking. As I turned on the radio on the way there, the newscaster was reporting that there had been a shooting at the local Amish schoolhouse. Terry told her friend Dolores Hayford. By that time, I was at my son's home, and I saw my husband and the state trooper standing right in front of me as I pulled in, she continued. And I looked at my husband, and he said, it was Charlie. And he said, I will never face my Amish neighbors again. That week, the Robertses had a private funeral for their son. But as they went to the grave site, they saw as many as 40 Amish start coming out from around the side of the graveyard, surrounding them like a crescent. Love just emanated from them, Terry said. I do recall the father saying, I believe that I have forgiven, but there are some days when I question that. Terry finds it especially hard to accept that forgiveness when she thinks of one of the survivors, Rosanna. She explains, Rosanna is the most injured of the survivors. Her injuries were to her head. She is now 15, still tube-fed, and in a wheelchair. And she does have seizures, and when it gets to this time of the year, as we get closer to the anniversary date, she seizes more. And it's certainly not the life that this little girl should have lived. Terry asked if it would be possible for her to help with Rosanna once a week. I read to her, I bathe her, dry her hair, Terry said, who herself is battling cancer. And while she can't say it with 100% certainty, Terry believes Rosanna knows who she is. I just sense that she knows, she said. I'll never forget the devastation caused by my son, says the 65-year-old Terry. But one of the fathers the other night, he said, none of us would have ever chosen this, but the relationships we have built through it, you can't put a price on that. And their choice to allow life to move forward was quite a healing balm for us. And I think it's a message that the world needs. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall be shown mercy. We began with blessed are the poor in spirit, our recognition of our need of God. Blessed are those who mourn when we recognize the broken state of our world and ourselves. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Recognizing that gentleness is required when we come along others who hurt. Recognizing blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, recognition of all that is good and also the chaos in our world, and desiring for something more, the I can only imagine. And today, mercy. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall be shown mercy. Luke chapter 6, verses 32 to 36 says this, if you love those you love, who love you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners love those who love them. And if you do good to those who are good to you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners do that. And if you lend to those whom you expect repayment, what credit is that for you? Even sinners lend to sinners expecting to be repaid in full. And then Jesus says, but love your enemies, do good to them, and lend to them without expecting to get anything back. Then your reward will be great, and you will be children of the Most High. because he is kind to the ungrateful and wicked. Be merciful just as your Father is merciful. And then also Psalm 86, verses 5 through 7. The psalmist writes, You, Lord, are forgiving and good, abounding in love to all who call to you. Hear my prayer, Lord. Listen to my cry for mercy. When I am in distress, I call to you, because you answer me. So I want to look at a story in Luke chapter 18. It's found also in Matthew chapter 20 and Mark 10. And being a person who's fairly visual, I find it helpful to have visuals sometimes for what we are doing. So, and this will become obvious as we go. A little awkward at the moment, but there we go. Excellent, and it fits just not quite right. There we go. My daughter must have worn this. Right, there we go. Or I wore it 20 years ago. There we go. So Jesus is on his way. He's on his way to Jerusalem. And it's the last week of his life, essentially. He's coming to the end. He's going to make his way. And for those in the Christian church, we recognize the story where Jesus ends up in Jerusalem, and he gets turned over to the authorities, and he goes before Pontius Pilate, and then he's crucified, and then he rises from the dead. Christianity, awesome. But before he gets there, he's got things that he does. And so he's wandering along this road on the way to Jerusalem, and he passes by Jericho, and just outside of Jericho, this is how the story goes in Luke 18. As Jesus approached Jericho, a blind man was sitting by the roadside begging. When he heard the crowd going by, he asked what was happening. They told him, Jesus of Nazareth is passing by. I love that Jesus has this reputation. And I wonder what that reputation is for the people you encounter. If you encountered someone in your workplace or on the playing field or the tennis court or wherever you may be, and they were to hear that Jesus was passing by, would they be interested? In that time, and at that place, there had been stories about him going around. There was a reputation about Jesus that he could actually change things. And I believe this about Jesus even today, 2,000 years later, that Jesus changes how we can live. So the guy, he says in a loud voice, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. Now, sometimes we come to Scripture and it becomes kind of nice, kind of a little kid story, and we read it like a fairy tale, or it's just gentle. But there's an intensity about when we, oh my gosh, my ear, there we go. Did I have it backwards? Thank you, love. That's my wife helping me out. I need my wife all the time. Oh, thank God. Literally, there we go. Sometimes we come to the Bible and it just becomes kind of soft. But there is a grittiness to Scripture, and so you hear this loud voice. Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. Do we pause and hear that as if we're in a movie? Can you see it? And what kind of desperation is there when you absolutely need God? And then it says, those who led the way rebuked him and told him to be quiet. But he shouted all the more. You know, you just can't stop somebody. It just gets loud. In absolute desperation, he shouts again, Son of David, have mercy on me. And Jesus stopped and ordered the man to be brought to him. When he came near, Jesus asked him, what do you want me to do? I really, really love this about Jesus. I love this about Jesus, that Jesus honors our requests. He doesn't do anything to us unless we want it to be done. He will let you be. But I believe that Jesus asks the question of all of us. If we find that quiet space, what would you have me do? What do you need? And here's the real kicker. Will you be brave enough to ask? Because if you ask, then you're putting yourself in a position of, will Jesus actually come through? If you don't ask, well, you can kind of just sit back and let it be. You know, for young people in here and you're in that dating mode, you know, when you're like, oh, I'd really like to meet that person. And you're like, you take your, you know, like, should I pick up? Well, I don't even know if you pick up the phone anymore. Do I text her? Do I, you know, make sure I'm in the hallway when they pass by? You know that you actually have to take that chance. Do we take that chance with God? That guy was so desperate that he was willing to take the chance. And he says, Lord, I want to see. Well, no duh. He wasn't going to ask for, you know, a milkshake or something like that. I mean, there was a real tangible need. I want to see. And Jesus said to him, receive your sight. Your faith has healed you. Immediately, he sees. And he followed Jesus, praising God. Again, no duh. Like at that point, like, whoa, awesome. I can see in color. And I see Jesus, the guy I was shouting for, that guy. So the question is mercy for you and to me. What are we crying out for? Why is mercy difficult? So if you were to pull out your iPhone or smartphone and you looked up mercy and then they show you the Seahawks score. No, I'm just kidding. Kind. It's gentle. It's compassionate. Especially towards someone who is undeserving of it. And the antonym, hard-heartedness, mercilessness, pitilessness, ruthlessness, uncharitableness, reprisal, retaliation, retribution. The antonyms seem to me to be true of our world, of how our world acts towards one another, whether it's in the Syrian crisis, whether it's in Nigeria with Boko Haram, whether it's with the North Koreans. Whatever the situation is, it seems that we live in the antonym rather than the synonym of mercy. We find ourselves wanting to take it out on others. And I think that is the general response that you would expect. But Jesus says, love your enemy. The default button is anger. And in our world, we find ourselves struggling to make things right. So I worked at a Native American school for 7 years. It was a really good experience. I don't think I would have chosen it. I think I got placed there, and I am thankful for those 7 years. And there was a janitor, a custodian. His name was Dave. And Dave was a very, very gentle, loving Native American Lummi tribal member. And I liked Dave from the first day. And then the housing thing hit in 2007, 2008, and he and I were having a short conversation. And he looked at me and he said, it seems to me that it comes down to greed. And I was like, yep. And I couldn't help but stand outside of myself as a white male, entitled, the victor, and look at this man who is conquered by my government and go, what is this about? How am I standing here just talking about greed when it was my manifest destiny that drove the Native Americans onto reservations? So I looked him in the eye and I said, Dave, I am sorry for what my white ancestors did to your people. He went, whoa. I said, would you forgive me for my part in that? And he was like, absolutely. We gave each other that little native hug, which was awesome. And then it was done. I've run into people who are like, why can't Native Americans just forgive and let it go? I'll tell you what, it is a long history of betrayal that happened to the people. And so when we encounter people who have been betrayed, who have been hurt, we, those who have hurt, need to stand in the gap and hear the hurt and be able to hear them ask, or be able to say to them, will you forgive me? I'm sure there's some of you in this room who are like, Bernd, you are nuts. I ain't doing that. Hey, that is your thing. I'm just saying where I stood that day with Dave. I felt it important to stand in that gap. The whole Black Lives Matter thing? All lives matter. Blue lives matter. Black lives matter. However you want to put that tag up. I'll tell you what, Native Americans, African Americans are the only people in the United States who were forcibly made minorities. Every other people group that came to America chose to come here on their own. Native Americans, African Americans, they got put in a spot. They didn't choose it. It's a hard place for them to be. And as you sit there and you go, mercy, do we encounter the people around us that are different and say, I need to make amends? Okay, that's big. That's big. You can deal with that however you want. What about your own life? Where does mercy come in? Okay, my dad was a real jerk. I hate him. My wife left me. She was unfaithful. My kids, well, they don't even like me. I don't really like them anymore. My grandpa, he was a drunk, beat us when we came over. My son's looking at me going, what? Is this true? No. But what if those things are true in your life? And you've put them in your backpack and you're holding them. There are things in your life that were hurtful. Somebody said something to you. Like I remember my soccer coach, once I stayed the night at my friend's house, and he was also, the dad was the coach, and so we spent the night there, and the next morning we were wiping things up after breakfast, and I wiped off the counters, and he said, boy, I'm glad you play soccer better than you wipe counters. Every time I wipe a counter, I think of him telling me I'm not very good at wiping a counter. I mean, it's not very important. I had a soccer coach in college. He said, Strom, what I like about you? And I said, tell me. He goes, not a damn thing. I was like, whoa, thanks, coach. You kind of get to that spot where you're like, you remember hurtful things, and those aren't even important. What about if your dad never had time for you? Your mom was too busy for you, and you carry that wound. Where is mercy? And so some people spend their whole lives trucking around, carrying baggage, not able to ever forgive. And so they just walk around and they won't give it up. They just hold it in their backpack, hold it in their travel case. These are my hurts, deal with it. And we put up guards because of those things. We never get to forgiveness. What if your hurt is against yourself? What if you were so bad that you caused damage? What if you caused your marriage to get into trouble? What if your decisions, you lost work because of it? Your decisions severed relationships, for they shall be shown mercy. I would hazard a guess to say that everybody in this room likes the idea of having mercy given to them. But the challenge is extending mercy to others. When you have been treated poorly, I can say in my own life that I have experienced tremendous mercy. People have been kind to me when I was not deserving of it. I deserved the opposite. And yet I found people who met me and said, Bernd, I forgive you. Not easy. At the end of the TV series Lost, which was one of my all-time favorite television shows, and this may give it away, but it's been around long enough that it's too bad. There's a main character, his name is John Locke, and Benjamin Linus, and the two of them, they have had a contentious relationship through all 6 seasons of the show. And it gets to the last one, and they're going to enter a church, and Benjamin Linus is outside of the church, and John Locke passes by. And Benjamin Linus and John Locke have a short conversation. And Benjamin Linus basically says, I want to ask you to forgive me. And John Locke says, well, if it will help, I forgive you, Benjamin. And then Benjamin Linus says, it helps more than you'll ever know. Forgiveness helps more than you'll ever know. Returning to the very beginning where we started with the Amish massacre that happened. There was healing that happened, and it was a balm. And so I want us to move to the communion table. And I would like you to imagine that you are carrying a backpack. And I'm not going to tell you to or challenge you to. I'm just going to invite you. Whatever backpack you are holding, whatever hurt that you carry, it can find its way to this table, and you can leave it here. You can come to this table and say, God, I need mercy. Will you forgive me? And according to Scripture, if we confess our sin, our hurt, our brokenness, this is where God forgives that. And it's let go. Some of you may come this morning and you're like, I want that, but that's really hard for me to imagine doing. And I may need more time. I'd invite you to come to this table to take communion and take that communion as strength, reminding you that God forgives us and extends mercy to us. While we were yet sinners, Christ died on our behalf, and we come here and we celebrate that. And perhaps you need someone to walk you through mercy. It's too much for you to do by yourself, so you invite someone. You say, Valerie, I'm having a hard time. I have a lot of anger inside me because of what was done to me. And Valerie can say, I'm just going to put words in your mouth, I can carry that with you. Not that Valerie's going to take care of it, but she can carry it along you. Because it's hard to carry all of our stuff by ourselves. So we carry things together. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall be shown mercy.